Hey again, everybody. Okay, so this week I am looking at the idea of the idealization and objectification of women in pre-Raph art. So basically, what my claim is that they are indeed still, well, they were being idealized, and they certainly were being objectified. And not only that, but that they're still being done today. So my stand is that women were not portrayed truthfully. I don't buy into the notion that painters were attempting to portray this perfect or divine figure that they were trying to improve on, God's greatest creation. I think that the paintings were one of two things. Either they were idealizations or they were objectifications, or maybe they were a combination of the two, but I don't see them being really much of anything else. I think that even if there were some good intentions there, that the mindset of the day, because remember, going back to that whole women are property idea that I ranted about last week, didn't allow for this idea like, they're the greatest creature, I'm trying to make them, even more perfect. I don't see how that could have been there. So I'm looking at how this pre-Raph art sort of depravity or chastity through symbolism, and one of the qualities, or the characteristics rather, of women that really determines this is their hair and how their hair is done. So it was the hair and the face were the only things that were really visible all the time, things that could be done up differently to show a woman was of one character or another. So with that kind of imagery, that would determine in these portrayals what these women were. So there is I found a couple of interesting things. So the College of Arts and Humanities, the University of Brighton, they actually have an online journal, which I found an article called The Fetishization and Objectification of the Female Body in Victorian Culture, written by Hannah Aspinall. And I found a quote that really speaks to the hair and how it affects the imagery. So it says that if chaste covered hair was considered to be the epitome of genteel womanhood, then free-flowing loose hair was considered to be unchaste and characteristic of a morally depraved woman, which is sort of a bold statement. We're talking about hair, but that was an idea at the time. That was an indication of, is this woman moral or is this woman depraved? You could do that. You could give that idea just by how you arranged your hair. Okay, so then there is Victorian painter William Eddy. He is quoted on the Victorian web as, well, not rather he is quoted, but they explain on the Victorian web that Eddy claimed he had a deep desire to paint God's greatest creation, woman, with perfection, and he set himself upon the task with the best of intentions. So this is what I was mentioning before, where I don't think that that was the idea, and the reason why is because women weren't even really considered real people, especially once they got married. They were property. So to be able to call a woman God's greatest creation, I mean, but then at the same time consider her property, I don't see how the two of those ideas mix together. So consider those two things, okay, and then think about how when these women were portrayed, when they were painted, and oftentimes painted nude or very suggestively, a lot of flesh, something happened there that took women from just being property to being even less than that. Okay, so artists who portrayed these women in this manner, they took away their individual identity. They no longer were an individual person. They could no longer be called that individual woman. Rather, they became an amalgamation of women. They were all of the desirable qualities, the sexy qualities, all the depraved parts. You know, they took all these things and put them together, and it wasn't a person, it was a thing. It was a portrait, an idea that was painted, and it was no longer an individual. The identity was gone. So, no sign of propriety. And for when you consider what was considered appropriate during Victorian times as far as behavior and dress and domestic skill, how women spoke, there was no sign of any of those things in these paintings. So she was just a body, okay? And she was designed and exhibited by a man. So I pulled up a couple of examples, and I've got those listed. So above me, and these are both Dante Gabriel Rossetti, but above me there's a painting, and this is supposed to be his wife in the painting. So, excuse me, my neighbor was knocking on the wall. Okay, so this is supposed to be his wife. So before you look at this, really look at it, I think that it would help to hear a couple of her poems, because I think it speaks to the depth of her character. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to read for you is called Remember. Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turned to go yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me. You understand it will be late to counsel then or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. The other one that I want to read to you is called Sleeping at Last. Sleeping at last, the trouble and tumult over. Sleeping at last, the struggle and horror past. Cold and white, out of sight of friend and of lover. Sleeping at last. No more a tired heart downcast or overcast. No more pangs that ring or shifting fears that hover. Sleeping at last in a dreamless sleep locked fast, fast asleep. Singing birds in their leafy cover cannot wake her, nor shake her the gusty blast. Under the purple thyme and the purple clover, sleeping at last. So my point with those two poems is not to analyze them, but I just want you to consider for a moment the depth of them. What she was considering, how raw the emotion is that she must have been feeling. The pain that she must have been feeling, the sorrow, the idea of no longer being here. And we know that she was troubled because she ended up taking her own life. I believe it was a laudanum overdose that she took intentionally. And the weight that was on her must have been intense. And she knew, I think, that she wasn't planning on staying around for a whole lifetime if she was writing like that. So there is an enormous amount of depth in this woman. Okay, so now I want you to actually look at this painting of her. So she is portrayed, there's a bit of a paradox here, I think, in this portrayal. She's almost has this look of ecstasy on her face. The eyes are closed. She has the long flowing hair. falls behind her back, but it looks like it's pretty long. Um, she has her eyes closed. She's got her lips, just a little bit parted, and qualities that sort of lend themselves toward the idea of the depraved woman. At the same time, she looks like she's kneeling. She's got her hands down open before her. She looks like she's going to pray, or maybe like she's going to receive communion. She looks very calm, though we know she probably wasn't. Okay, so the way she has been represented is, in my opinion, an idealization of a woman. Not how she actually was. It's not her truth. Now, granted, he was in mourning and he probably wanted to remember his wife in a good light, but I don't think this was uncommon, where a woman is portrayed as something other than what she actually was. He's got this like couple of different archetypes and sort of built into her in one. She is the depraved woman. At the same time, she is the pure and honest and moral woman of God put together. She's two different archetypes, I think. And that is, I think, in a way, an unfair depiction of her, because he made her with those two ideas much more, or maybe much less than what she actually was. It's lacking every other part of her. It's nothing but this one image portrayed in a certain manner that is an idealization of her for him. It's not really necessarily her. So now I want you to look at the painting that is below me right now. This is another one of his. Now this one clearly is an objectification of women. I don't know how anybody could think anything else. I know that there is a fine line between nude art and pornography. They didn't have Hustler in the Victorian era, so I think this is what they got. But this woman, she's got sort of the loose hair. She's naked. What I think is really interesting about this one is she's holding the apple. Original sin, tempting the man. Let's say he reaches out to get the apple. He comes close enough to get the apple, and then what does she do with the arrow? You're going to get stabbed with it. I get the idea from this painting that women are being reminded that they're sinners. They're wrong, they're evil. She looks a little more, she almost looks sort of indifferent to me, like, oh, okay, well, this is the way I'm going to be portrayed, so whatever, go ahead and do the painting. But she's being objectified. She is. I don't see how it's anything else, especially, but there's no reason, let's say it were a painting that was supposed to be about sin and temptation. You could use just the apple. You don't need to have her naked, but by having her naked, it's just reinforcing the idea of temptation and desire. Objectification. That's how I see this one. Okay, so now these are just the two examples that I've chosen to use because there are so many of them, but if I went through them all, it would just take way too long. So I'm just going to stick with these two. But I think that it's enough to show that there was not room for progress toward gender equality when there was still this kind of idea. I think it's just another version of how men were seeing women at the time. I think it's still their interpretation. I don't think that women had any say in how they were portrayed. I think that, what makes it even worse is that women were this oppressed class that had a voice that could attempt to fight back, to change legislation, to do something, to make something different. And now at this point, they are just silent. They don't have any voice. It's a painting. It's an image. It's there. It can't respond. It can't, if I'm wrong about what it is, it can't tell me. And there is sort of this flatness to it. This idea, why would this painting want to change my idea? Why would it have an inclination to fight back? Doesn't. All it does is stay there on the wall and be still. It's, these women are captured in this moment that's unrealistic. I mean, nobody walks around naked with an apple and an arrow. You just don't. But they're just there to just be looked at or gawked at, depending on who's doing the looking. They can't defend themselves from how they're portrayed or interpreted by the people who look at them. So I think still no room for forward progress here. I don't think that it's helping women. I think that they were idealized. I think that they were objectified. I think it's the same way today too, so idealization models. I just got a new Victoria's Secret catalog in the mall. It's full in the mail. It's full of very pretty ladies in their cute little swimsuits, which is going to be one of two things. Idealization for women, I want to look like that. That's the ideal body figure for me. Or objectification. I want to do that, if you're attracted to that. So it's still one or the other. It still exists. Pornography, clearly objectification of women. It still exists. Why women agree to be objectified in that manner, I think, is like a subject for a whole nother thing that would just take me until tomorrow. But the point is that it's still happening. They're still idealized. They're still objectified. They were idealized and objectified then. None of these portrayals, I've looked through quite a few of them. None of them really speak to me and say, hey, this is helping the plight of the woman. It's not moving them toward gender equality. I think they keep women immobile. I think they keep them captured in that piece of that moment in time. There's someone else's idea, someone else's image, someone else's interpretation, and the whole time they're voiceless. They're nothing but a subject of inaccurate judgment, I think, by everyone who sees them. You never really know who that woman is. So that's my thoughts on it. Tell me what you think. Now, I found sort of this sort of comical video related to the whole idea, the ideal woman, and I found this video from the Ellen DeGeneres show that addresses, in Ellen's very comical way, the idea of the perfect woman, the ideal woman, and what people should really be looking for. And I think it also just shows to prove that this idea of the perfect woman, the idealization, that it still exists. So I have that video also below me. So take a look at that, and that is, it's kind of a light finish, I think, to the whole idea here. But again, this week I invite you to tell me what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I somewhere in between? Or is it somewhere in between? Look at the paintings. Give me your ideas. Let me know. What you think of the whole idea of idealization and objectification of women? And if you are interested in it, tell me how those concepts affect you even today. I can, for myself, it's the way women are viewed and what people think women should be. So I've done this, and I noticed it, and so I actually started trying it out. If I dress in a certain way, do my hair in a certain way, people will take me seriously. Okay, and that certain way is maybe I wear jeans and a t-shirt and I don't really do anything with myself and I look kind of dumpy. People will talk to me like an intelligent woman. If I dress up and I put my hair up and I do a little makeup and I have a cute outfit and cute little heels and I'm smiling and happy, I've noticed that people talk to me like I'm dumb. They do. And I've had a number of people use a very condescending tone with me, and when I respond to them in a way that is not what they expected, the look on their face is usually entertaining. But it's just, it goes to show it's still there. Women are still judged by the way that they are, the way they look, the way they're portrayed, even by the way that they portray themselves. So let me know, has it happened to you? What do you think of it? How does it affect you now? What do you think of it then? I'm curious to hear, so I look forward to your responses. Thanks, guys.